Good morning and a very warm welcome to one and all present here. Today is Thursday, 22nd July, and according to the Gujarati calendar, it is Ashad Sud Teras. Let's proceed to the morning prayers.
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
With the advancement of technology, the human life expectancy has increased drastically in the recent years. One such feat that the human race has achieved in the medical field is the process of organ transplant. Today's topic is organ donation and transplant. Now, Misri, Aatmaja, and Smith will explain the process of organ transplant and commence the assembly.
Organ donation is the process of surgically removing an organ or tissue from one person, the organ donor, and placing it into another person, the recipient. Transplantation is necessary because the recipient's organ has failed or has been damaged by disease or injury. Organs that can be donated includes liver, pancreas, kidney, heart, and many more. Organ transplantation is one of the great advances in modern medicine. Unfortunately, the need for organ donors is much greater than the number of people who actually donate. Organ donation is important because it helps people suffering from chronic illnesses to live a more fulfilled life and a healthier one up to a normal lifespan. Donation may even be for research other than donating an organ to another person. Organ donation is an opportunity to help others. Receiving an organ can become a life changing event for many people. It can also help a family work through the grieving process and deal with their loss by knowing that their loved one is helping save the lives of others.
Hello, today I am going to talk about the process of organ transplant. The first step includes identification of the potential donor by the hospital. Medical professionals at a hospital identify a potential candidate for donation of organs. It is then proceeded with evaluation of donor eligibility. The hospital is called on all imminent death patients. Information is provided on the patient's medical status and the hospital coordinator evaluates the patient. The evaluation includes a medical and social history and physical examination of the patient. This determines whether or not the patient is a suitable candidate for donation. Next comes authorization for organ recovery. If the patient is a candidate for organ and or tissue donation at an appropriate time, the legal next of kin is approached with the opportunity of donation. If an individual authorization by the descendant cannot be identified, the family must give their consent in order for the donation process to proceed. If the family consents, they must sign a donor consent form. After this, medical maintenance of the patient is carried. Once family consent or donor designation has been provided, the clinical coordinator with the hospital staff maintains the patient medically. In some cases, physician support is also requested on a consultation basis. The most crucial step here is matching organs to potential recipients. From the information on the organs available for donation, the donor's blood type and body size is provided by the clinical coordinator. The computer then matches the donated organs to potential recipients. Recipient selection is based on blood type, body size, medical urgency, and length of time on the waiting list. The heart, liver, and lungs are matched by blood type and body size. In matching the pancreas and kidneys, the genetic tissue type is also considered. The program offers organs regionally, then nationally. A computerized list of waiting patients in the matching blood group is provided to the coordinator who seeks to match organs with recipients in the hospital's donation service area. If a match cannot be made for a specific organ within this area, the organ is offered on a regional basis, then nationally if necessary.
Step 7. Placing organs and coordinating recovery. When a recipient match has been found, the coordinator calls the transplant center for the patient who matches the donated organs. The patient's transplant surgeon is responsible for deciding whether to accept the organ. If the surgeon declines the organ for that patient, the coordinator contacts the transplant surgeon of the next patient on the list. This process continues for each organ until all the organs have been approximately matched with the recipients. Surgical recovery of the organs. When the surgical team arrives, the donor is taken to the operating room to recover the organs and tissues through the dignified surgical process. Step 9. Preparing recipients for the surgery. Once the recipients have been identified, they are called by the transplant surgeons for the final pre-operative preparations while the organ recovery process is occurring at the donor's hospital. Upon the organ's arrival at the transplant hospital, the recipients are taken to the surgery and the transplants are performed. Step 10. Distribution of the organs. The coordinator takes a sample of the lymph node tissue to the laboratory for the tissue typing and the subsequent matching with the recipients. Other organs are directly taken to the recipients by the surgical recovery teams. Step 11. Funeral and burial plans. After the recovery process has occurred, the donor's family can proceed with the funeral and the burial plans, which are not affected by the organ donation. Organ and tissue donation is a dignified and a respectful process. Step 12. Follow up with the family and hospital. The coordinator follows up with each donation by sending letter to the donor's family, hospital staff, physicians and the nurses regarding the organs and the tissues that have been recovered.
The next presentation will be conducted by Shiv Kothari, Shrey Fufari and Nishchay Gupta from IB1. The presentation includes the international awareness, efficacy, development and history of organ donation.
So we are going to talk about organ transplant and its international awareness, efficacy and the development in the past few decades.
Hello, I am going to talk about international awareness about organ transplant. In UAE, a survey was conducted of 500 people in which less than 40% of people exactly knew about organ transplant, but others knew but not completely. By knowing this, they were motivated about this organ transplant donation. In Saudi Arabia, most of the people know about organ transplant, and 70% of them considered it legal in their religious point of view. The gap between number of organ donors and the number of patients waiting for organ transplantation increases every year. In USA, the studies showed that there were 80% of people who supported organ transplant. The majority of them were in favor of living directed donation. In UK, 19 million people support organ transplantation, but when it comes to donation, 45% people refuse to donate because of problems. Every year, the number of people who get organ donation for transplant are increasing every year. In China, 95% of the people know about organ transplantation and they are very positive about this. The majority of them are in favor of deceased organ donation and are willing to donate their own organs after their death. The graph shows that every year the number of lives saved is increasing.
The story of organ donation begins in 1869. In 1869, the first ever transplant was performed, and this was the skin transplant. In 1954, the first living donor was able to donate his kidney. 1963, in 1963, they recovered an organ from a brain dead donor in order to facilitate organ transplant to those in need. And then in 1967, the first heart transplant was performed in the United States of America. The Organ Procurement Organization was established in 1968 in Boston so as to ease and facilitate organ donation and organ transplant in the United States of America. In 1976, a drug called cyclosporin and its ability to suppress the immune system, preventing rejection, was discovered in 1976. In 1980, the definition of death was changed to ensure smoother process of organ donation. Cyclosporin got the FDA approval in 1983. The first successful combined transplant took place between 1983 and 1984. In a combined transplant, two or more organs were transplanted from one person to another. The National Organ Transplant Act was established in the USA, making sale of organs illegal in order to stop organ trafficking, and also vowed to provide grants and subsidies to organizations that carry out organ transplants or facilitate organ donation. In 1986, required request legislation allowed family members of deceased patients to donate his or her organs. 1990 was the year when first heart transplants would be paid by Medicare. In the same year, Dr. Joseph E. Murray and Dr. E. Donald Thomas were awarded Nobel for their contributions in 1990. They were the ones who facilitated the kidney donation of 1954. In 1998, plasmapheresis was introduced, which allowed kidney transplant in patients whose blood groups or antibodies did not match of those of the donors. In 1999, Institute of Medicine released Organ Procurement and Transplantation Report. Through this report, waiting time for those who were less ill and needed liver transplants was decreased, and they also recommended improvements in collection and use of data for organ donation.
Organ transplant in the past 2 decades have also significantly increased. The number of living donors has exceeded compared to the deceased donors for the time being in 2000 and 2001. The movie The No Greater Love was released in 2002 to spread awareness about organ donation. The first successful full face transplant was at Wolhebron Hospital in 2010. In 2014, vascularized composite allografts are added to the organs covered by federal regulation and law and the National Organ Transplant Act. These are some of the statistics and the efficiency and shown by organ donation. As of 2017, there were almost 35,000 transplants in a single year, which was a record-breaking fifth consecutive year that the organ transplant had increased. And there were more than 10,000 deceased donors in a single calendar year. Also, about 95 patients had their life saved by every day in 2017. Unfortunately, we lost every single day. We lost at least 20 people due to them not finding an organ donor. An amazing fact is that one organ donor can donate up to and donate and save lives up to up to 8 people. And there are 6,200 living donor transplants in 2017, and every 10 minutes someone is added to the national transplant waiting list. Thank you.
Even today, organ donation is a sensitive topic to discuss. This is because it has many ethical aspects linked to it. Shivkanani, Shlok Kotecha, and Straygol from IB2 will now discuss the ethics behind organ donation.
First, I'd like to talk about transplantation ethics. Transplantation ethics incorporates defending or advocating what is right and wrong in organ donation. There are some ethical issues related to organ transplant which arises from shortage of organ transplant. Everyone who needs cannot get one. According to UNOS, out of 107,000 awaiting transplants, only 36,500 transplants were successful in USA alone. Distributive justice theory states that there is not only one right way to distribute organs, but rather many different factors which could be taken into consideration when a person is giving an organ to one individual over another. The factors may include according to one's needs, according to efforts, or according to contribution. Equal access supporters believe that organ transplantation is a valuable medical procedure and worth offering to those who need it. They also argue that because the procedure is worthy, everyone should be able to access it equally. The distribution process for transplantable organs that is free of biases is based on race, sex, income, level, and geographic distance from the organ. Some who believe in equal access distribution would also like to have an organ distribution process of medical or social worthiness biases. Medical worthiness biases could exclude patients from reaching the top of the transplant waiting list if lifestyle choices like smoking and alcohol use have damaged their organs. Social worthiness biases would factor in a patient's place in society before giving them an organ. Given below are the primary reasons for wanting to prevent individual worth from factoring into organ distribution. On the other hand, some ethicists argue that individual worth is more important to consider during organ distribution. They argue that distribution is biased against worthy individuals when individual worthiness factors are not included.
The second type of distributive justice criteria is maximum benefit. The goal for maximum benefit criteria is to maximize the number of successful transplants. Maximum benefit criteria takes into account medical needs, that is, the sickest people are given the first opportunity for a transplantable organ, and second, the probable success of a transplant, giving organs to the people who will be most likely to live the longest. People who support the maximum benefit philosophy believe organ transplants are medically valuable procedures and wish to avoid the wasting of organs because they are very scarce. To avoid waste, they put into place a ranking system wherein transplant candidates are ranked by taking into account how sick the patient is and how likely it is that the patient will live after he or she receives a transplant. Successful transplants are measured by the number of life years gained. This philosophy allows organ procurement organizations to take into account several things when distributing organs that the equal access philosophy does not, like giving a second organ transplant to someone who's already had one or factoring in the probability of a successful medical outcome. There are three primary arguments that oppose the maximum benefit distribution criteria. First, predicting medical success is difficult because a successful outcome can vary. Is success the number of years the patient lives after transplant? Or is success the number of years a transplantable organ functions? These questions pose challenges to those attempting to allocate organs using medical success predicting criteria. The second argument against maximum benefit distribution is that distributing organs in this way could leave the door open for bias, lying, favoritism, and other unfair practices, more so than other forms of distribution due to the subjective nature of this criteria. Third, some ethicists argue against using age and maximizing life years as criteria for distributing organs because it devalues the remaining life of an older person awaiting a transplant. Regardless of how old someone is, if that person does not receive a transplant, they will still be losing the rest of his or her life, which is valuable to everyone. Nonetheless, even though Transplantation criteria are set in place, it cannot be argued that organ transplantation revolves around the fact that people who needs money trade their organs with people who has money and needs organs. It would be fair to state that this is simply exploitation of poor people and involves unimaginable discrimination. Transplantable organs are scarce. Knowing that there are more people who need organs than there are organs available, how would you answer the following questions? Are your questions based on belief of equal access or maximum benefit distribution? Thank you.
Wow, that was really insightful. Never Let Me Go, a novel written by the British novelist Kazuo Ishiguro in 2005, follows a dystopian science fiction plotline. Krish Parmar will now conduct a book review on the same.
I'm presenting a book review about a novel which is a dystopian fantasy relating to a near future where clones are specially brought to existence to harvest their organs. Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro, where there are a few people who are specifically created and live in a place called Hiroshima, where they spend their particular life period over there and then are sent to different hospitals where they have to become a donor. But before they become a donor, they are well trained emotionally, so there is no much of anxiety developed. As you start growing older, you have open doors to freedom where you can explore a part of fun in the outer world other than Hailsham. Somehow deep down inside, they do know these are the last few hours before they become a donor, and later they die in an attempt to. In conclusion, the novel attempts a period of existence where, regardless of birth and class, everyone has equal rights for happiness. No one is born to give a life for the other. The author intends to create not only awareness about organ transplant, but provides a timely warning bell about the ethics and encompass this complexity of harvesting organs from.
Next, Shriya will now sing a song, Jeete Hain Chal from the movie Nirja.
कहता ये पल खुद से निकल जीता चल जीता चल जीता चल कम मुसाफिर था जाने दे तू आंगन में आने दे जीता चल जीता चल जीता चल तलवों के नीचे है ठंडी सी एक धरती कहती है आजा दौड़ेंगे यादों के बक्सों में जिंदा सी खुशबू है कहती है सब पीछे छोड़ेंगे उंगलियों से कल की रेत बहने दे आज और अभी में खुद को रहने दे कहता ये पल खुद से निकल जीता चल जीता चल जीता चल एक टुकड़ा हंसी चख ले एक डली जिंदगी रख ले जीता चल जीता चल जीता चल हिचकी रुक जाने दे सिसकी थम जाने दे इस पल की ये गुजारिश है मरना क्यों जी लेना बूंदों को पी लेना तेरे ही सपनों की बारिश है पानियों का रास्ते तू बनाने दे रोशनी के पीछे खुद को जाने दे, कहता ये पल खुद से निकल, जीता चल, जीता चल, जीता चल. कहता ये पल खुद से निकल, जीता चल, जीता चल, जीता चल, जीता चल.
What a performance! Now, the point to socho will be conducted by Venisha Mehta.
Organ transplant is one of the most medically advanced process in today's world. Lots of people have been benefited with it, and it's a spiritual experience where a person saves or transforms another person's life. Saving an individual's life by donating a vital organ is not only a courageous act but an admirable one as well. There are few people who donate their entire bodies for research purposes in medical colleges after their death. The results of organ transplantation continue to improve as a consequence of the innovations and the improvements. That's why we, as an advisory, came up with the idea to not only spread awareness but also create a platform where all aspects related to this theme are explored. It is an important point of reflection that all of us need to spend time on, as well as take active steps to present all the available viewpoints. Thank you.
Let's end with a quote. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to show up to the messy, imperfect, and beautiful journey of life. That said, let's all appreciate the amazing presentations and recitations today. Thank you for being a wonderful audience and have a great day ahead.